So I want to talk a little bit about a conversation that I had this morning, and I was working with a client, and we were talking about just this very thing, right? Demand service. How do you treat demand service? Do you treat it as a service call? Do you treat it as a replacement opportunity? If it evolves into a replacement opportunity, how do you handle that conversation? And, it was kind of a compare and contrast situation because on one hand, he has a technician who's just extremely personable, leads with his heart, is an effective communicator, makes clients feel safe. And, that's what we would all expect from a great relationship from a service technician in a demand service environment, to be treated with respect and integrity, to have clear communication, and if and when the situation turned into a replacement opportunity, to handle it with retail customer-centric language and materials. So that was situation one. Situation two was a technician who was not having great results, is not having great results. And in this case, even when he would attempt to convert a demand service opportunity into a replacement, struggled tremendously on a few different points. And, it's funny because that A starts with attitude, right? You had two people doing essentially the same job. One believing that his role is to not only service the customers as needed, but to give them low pressure options. Option two is the service technician that almost takes the contrarian point of view, right? And when the opportunities are there, rather than try and capitalize on them politely, just disregards them. And ultimately, the only person that suffers from that is the customer. And so I'd like you to ask yourself two questions, right? As a salesperson or as a business owner, what 5 words do I want to be known for? What 5 words do I want my company to be known for? And you'll probably come up with things like honesty and integrity and loyalty, family, things like that. The purpose of the exercise is clear, right? If you consistently keep your promise, if you consistently not only know who you are, but if you keep your promise to your customers on a regular basis, and that is that is the product of coaching, right? I mean, there are 2 reasons why people that work for you don't just skyrocket. One is they don't know how to do it, or 2, they just don't want to do it. And they're both solvable. But I don't want to lose sight of the long game here, right? As Jennifer knows, as we all know, if you look at the scale of loyalty among your clients, you spend a lot of money to build a base that you would consider to be a casual audience, right? You fund your website, your social media feeds, et cetera, et cetera. Building a customer base for demand service takes time and it takes money. And they transition eventually, if they stay with you for a maintenance agreement, to what we could describe as an engaged audience. You see them a couple times a year, so you do engage them. But the opportunities for leveraging demand service on the big picture scale occur when an engaged audience actually becomes part of a connected community. When they see your brand, when they recognize that it is consistently delivered. And at the pinnacle of this kind of hierarchy here is exactly who we're all trying to create and acquire through our demand service efforts, which means we cannot keep them or view them transactionally. It takes a lot of money to acquire customers, but if you connect and if you deliver and if you keep your promise, over time you develop a small nucleus of super fans. And they don't take very much money or effort to keep because they come back to you voluntarily. And that's who we'd all like to build our business around, all of our sales efforts around. And so when I think about demand service, I think about 2 things, right? On the short term, are my technicians using this experiential marketing opportunity to keep the promise? What 5 words do I want my company to be known for? And am I working with my technicians so that they understand that their first and foremost role in the company as an experiential marketer is to keep the promise? The technical piece, of course, is a foregone conclusion. But second, the long term, if you're going to play the long game in terms of customer loyalty, is to understand that if you're paying money to gain customers, and if you're treating that transactionally, if you're treating these demand service calls transactionally, you're missing the hidden growth opportunity within any business, which is a loyal cadre of superfan customers that tell people about you, that connect with you socially, that cross-sell and continue to buy from you when you have new and improved offerings or specials or promotions. The goal of demand service, of course, is to service the equipment. The real goal, in my opinion, is to, over time, build a radically loyal base of superfan customers that don't take a whole lot of effort, energy, or resources to maintain. So when I think about demand service, I think about the long game. Yes, we're going to go do it. We're going to treat the customer with the utmost respect. The long game is, if I treat that customer transactionally, I'm not building my base of highly hyper loyal fans. And that's what we all want, so we'd all like. So that's my perspective on demand service. There's a short-term goal and there's a long-term goal. Short-term, conduct, integrity, respect. Before we pass the hat, I want to just pose a question, right? The season's here. I was talking with somebody in Florida. They're out running calls, right? They're doing service calls. They're doing sales calls. The question is, how would it feel to have the best selling season you've had in years? Well, going into summer, how would you feel if you were making more money than you did last year and if you're having better relationships with your customers? I say that for a simple reason. The next sales lab, I'm not going to bully pulpit, is in 2 weeks. What we are talking about specifically is overcoming price and stall objections. What do you do when someone says, it's a lot more than I thought? And what do you do when someone says, you're the first of three, or I'm going to sit on this? Included, of course, get on board the sales lab and you've got unlimited access. We've had 5 hours of recorded coaching, 50 pages of coaching materials, $60 a month. Stop anytime, but nobody has. So the link is at Arrow & Fletching. I appreciate you all so very much. Treat service as a long-term piece of building a loyal customer base. That's the end game.